Hi, I'm Tori, and today I'm going to be talking about books that I didn't finish, but that I still think about a lot. So I tend to finish a lot of the books that I start. Sometimes it takes me a while because I read lots of books at once, but I usually get around to finishing them eventually. And usually if I don't finish a book, it's just because I'm really not enjoying it and I'm not having fun with it, and I will put it down and be glad to put it down and never think of it again. But I've been thinking about it, and there are several books that I put down and I think I will probably never pick up again. I have very little intention of ever finishing them, but I still think about them a lot, and I'm still glad that I read the first half of them. So I'm going to talk about those today. So first up, I have The Blind Assassin by Margaret Atwood. I picked this book up because I had just finished reading Oryx and Crake by Margaret Atwood, which I loved, and this book looked very beautiful and sounded like it had a very interesting premise. So basically this book is a story within a story within a story. So it starts out from the point of view of an old woman who is at the end of her life, and her life has become very small, and every day is very depressing and very difficult for her. And that's kind of like the outer story. Then she's kind of looking back on her childhood and remembering what life was like for her. She came from a very wealthy, kind of eccentric family, lived in this big mansion. I think they owned a factory that supported most of the town nearby. And so that is the kind of second inner story. And then finally the third layer of story is back in that childhood, I believe. It's been a while since I read this, so I don't remember the details exactly. But back in that childhood, someone was telling a story about the blind assassin, which was off in some exotic country. And it was a daring tale of romance and intrigue and all that stuff. And I was loving that. I loved the blind assassin story, and I loved the childhood story. But I just did not like the outer story where she was an old woman trying to get by in day-to-day life. And I think it's a very good story and a very important story to tell. It's kind of helping you to think about your own mortality and think about the older people in your lives and think about the fact that you will get old someday and think about what that will be like and things like that, which is very good, and I think most people would enjoy reading that. But I am not the kind of person who needs to think that. I am a person who worries about a lot of things and tends to overthink and worry about things that are nowhere near happening. And I do not need to spend any more time worrying about my future or what I'm going to do in my old age. So this was just not the book for me. And I loved the inner stories and I was enjoying it very much. But just reading the story reminding you about your own mortality and thinking about what life is going to be like when you're in your 90s or whatever, that was not an enjoyable experience for me. But I do still enjoy thinking about the blind assassin and the tales of their childhood, and I have very fond memories of the parts of this book that I did read. And I got pretty far into this book. It's the only one that still has the bookmark in it. So you can see I got a decent way in before I just decided that I should stop reading. Next, I have The Mists of Avalon by Marion Zimmer Bradley. So this is a retelling of the King Arthur Knights of the Round Table myth, all from the points of view of the women of the story. And I actually saw part of the movie once when I was a very young child, and so it was exciting for me to get to pick this up and look at it again. And so I loved the mythology of this world, and I loved the magical, wonderful things happening in this world, the intrigue, all of that stuff was very fun. But I believe this was published sometime in the 80s. And it's definitely from the wave of feminism where some people tended to love all women just because they were women and hate all men just because they were men. And you get just kind of like a little bit of the vibe of that in this story. And I finally got tired of it and put it down because, I don't know, maybe if I had finished it the characters would have grown more, but at the point where I got tired of it, which was somewhere in the middle, I feel like I was a decent way into it, like maybe halfway through or getting close. The main character was being told what to do by this order of women priestesses or something that she belonged to. And she was told, and there were all these things about how she shouldn't listen to the patriarchy and she should follow her dreams and stuff, but she should also do everything that the women matriarchy told her to do. And I was really tired of that. And maybe if I'd finished it, she would have learned to stand up for herself and not listen to anybody. But I wasn't really having fun with it anymore, so I just decided to put it down. So the next book I'm going to talk about is Misfortune by Wesley Stace. This one also has a bookmark in it, and I got just about exactly halfway through it before I put it down. And so this was a very fun story. Basically, it tells the story of a very wealthy, eccentric gentleman who always wanted to have a daughter. And one day, I can't remember why, but someone finds a baby, like on the doorstep, or it might have even been in a trash heap somewhere. They find this baby and bring it home, and he's thrilled to have a daughter, and he spoils her and pampers her and just showers her with love and just raises her, and he's so excited. The only problem was the baby they brought home was a boy, and like the servants are telling him it's a boy, and like he definitely like knew about this, but he just kept insisting, no, it's a girl. And he was wealthy enough that he could just get away with it. So it's the story of this main character who was raised with the name Rose and grew up their whole life thinking that she was a girl and, you know, having dresses and playing with other little girls, and all the servants knew the truth and were able to help kind of hide it a little bit. And then Rose hits puberty and things get weirder and weirder until he finds out that he is really a boy. And I was loving the story. It is very quirky and zany, and it's fun to watch kind of the growing up process from a different, very eccentric kind of way. And I'd gotten to the point where Rose was a young adult. I'm not sure. This is a historical book, and I think Rose would have been able to be an adult, you know, and have everything go great. But then the father dies, and minor spoilers, I'll put the word spoilers on the screen, and you can mute the video and take it off mute when you see the word spoilers come down. When Rose's father dies, he's very certain in the will he wants to leave everything to Rose, and he says that he's leaving everything to his daughter Rose. And from the way the book is written in the beginning, you know that Rose is going to lose everything. So I'm sure that the lawyers will insist that since Rose is really a boy, that he doesn't get anything because the will said a daughter, so he is going to lose everything. It was just looking at that point like very bad things were going to happen. And I know that if I had just pushed through that little bit, then I probably would have enjoyed the rest of the story, and this is actually the book that I would be the most likely to finish. But it's been so long now, I don't think I could get back into it, especially knowing that there's that hard part where very bad things are going to happen, and I just don't want to see that. I did definitely have a lot of fun with this story. The characters were very memorable, and I just loved watching Rose's childhood and life in this fun manner with this very quirky older gentleman kind of running everything. And finally, I have Wideacre by Philippa Gregory. Now, I think Philippa Gregory is most famous for writing The Other Boleyn Girl. She does a lot of historical fiction, especially kind of during the Tudor era. And I love The Other Boleyn Girl. My favorite book by her was The Constant Princess, and I've read lots of her historical fiction. This is actually, I believe, one of the first books she ever wrote. And it is also historical fiction, but her other books are about people who actually existed, and this one's not. This one is about characters that she made up. And I was really excited to read it because I love her writing style and I love her characters. And like this book was definitely very memorable, and there were lots of things that I really liked about it. But I stopped reading it because the main character was very, very unlikable and like kind of a horrible person, and I'm okay with that. But she also made very bad decisions, and I hate it when main characters in books make bad decisions. And like her only redeeming quality up to that point had been that she seemed fairly smart, and then she just made the stupidest decision ever, so I put the book down. So I'm going to tell you what that decision was. If you don't want to hear it, mute it while I have the word spoilers on the screen, and then you can listen to the video again once that's gone. So basically this main character, Beatrice, really wants to own her family's property. It kind of reminds me of Scarlett O'Hara loving Tara in Gone with the Wind. And she really wants to own this property. And so she falls in love with a worker boy on the property, and they hatch this plan to kill off her father so that they can take possession of the land. And she does this. She murders her father. She does all this stuff, and she and the boy are ready to become the lord and lady of this grand place. And then she decides that she doesn't want to share with him. She wants to own this herself, and she doesn't want this unworthy boy to have possession too. So she kills the boy too. And like she's doing lots of despicable things, and you don't read this book because you like the main character. You read it for the intrigue and stuff, and I'm fine with that. But she has no plan. She lives in a world where women cannot inherit property. And she's insisting that she must inherit this, and she does not want to share it with anybody. And she's not capable of inheriting it, unless this is going to be her going to the courts and changing who can own things or dressing up as a man, and I don't think either of those things are going to happen. Like, it was such a bad decision. And so I have no interest to see what happens next. This book is like a 3-book series that follows 3 generations, and I feel like it'll all be bad until the 3rd book. So I have no interest in reading the rest of the book, but I was still very intrigued by the first part, and I liked the story. Philippa Gregory's writing is so captivating, and I definitely enjoyed it, and I liked the part of it that I read. I just have no interest in reading any further. So those are all of the books that I did not finish but still think about a lot, and I'm still very glad that I read. And looking at them now, they're all very, very huge. So I'm guessing that that's because I really like to finish books, and so if a book is fairly short and I've liked lots of things about it, I will just push through and finish it. But these ones were so long, I just didn't have the time or patience to get through that much. Or you could just say that I'm kind of lazy and don't like reading giant fat books if I'm not enjoying them. That couldn't be the reason. So these are very fun books. If you think my descriptions of any of them sound good, I would still recommend reading them because there were definitely things about them that I really liked. So thanks for listening.